Hey, check out this preview of Drake Defensecon. Thank you to my long-term subscribers. I cover a lot of ships that will be future Fury carriers and use cases with right near the Riker Spaceport hangar elevators and the new, by the way, the new ASOP terminals that are positioned right near the elevators as well. They have been moved from down there, and now there's a waiting like seats to over here is Drake Defensecon. Now I'm on the 3.19 PTU and have my FPS up, which is incredible staring at nothing right now. It's like in the 70s and 80s. And let's go see what the FPS is at the ship hall. So Drake Defensecon is an event that happens usually right before the finale of the launch, Invictus launch week. It's its own creature. It is not affiliated with the actual event. Drake basically said, fine, you're not going to let me be part of your big event, and we've never been a part of the UE Navy officially, then as a vendor, then we'll make our own event. And this is what Drake came up with. So if it's your first year, be sure to catch this. It's kind of an interesting thing. And it goes without saying, this video is a little bit of a spoiler, unless there's anything brand new that they're hiding in this build. So last year, the big event was actually the Vulture. And Drake can play fast and loose in what's on the floor because it's not about what the UEE Navy has available or not. It's more about what they want to provide, what they want to put up. Because it's their own event. So inside the actual hall, with all these ships loaded in on very high and high settings, my 7800 X3D build is showing about 38 FPS, 39 FPS. Server FPS is actually a little low tonight. It's at 7, 8, kind of variable like that. Average is claiming to be around the 7s. But it keeps dipping down. But yeah, the FPS is going okay. As a reminder, my system is bottlenecked by a 2080 that's heavily overclocked, but it's still just a 2080. Eventually that will be replaced. But just to give you some perspective on what performance you're seeing on 3.19 PTU in the brand new areas. I look at the Cutty Blue, I look at the Cutty Red, I look at those beautiful, beautiful lines on those ships, particularly the Blue's cockpit. I've always wished that this cockpit could be added to the red, because I'm a huge fan of the red in a variety of different paint schemes. But I wish it had that beautiful, beautiful cockpit glass canopy, I guess you could call it, 'cause it's not really glass. And there's the tried and true Cutty Black. And, of course, the Cutty Steel. I think someday... Well, sorry, wait a minute. Does this have door guns or not? This is the Cutty Black. Oh, well, that's staying in. The Cutty Steel has the door guns. And it also has an incredible amount of seats in the back that replace a lot of space. So this thing is kind of a meme right now. Hopefully in the future, if it has a little bit of, you know, when armor is actualized, maybe it won't be such a pinata. We'll see. One of the pricing formulas, it is said that the steel's a little expensive, not just because of the seats, which each one of these has a cost and has to be outfitted. It's also because of the turrets available. And the argument is with the steel, you need a ton of people to operate these small weapon systems, which are obviously deactivated while we're sitting here, to be able to make this ship, well, practical at all. I don't know why I would risk that many people in the back of there, even half that amount of people in such a squishy ship, for lack of a better term, because it's going to be primary the minute somebody sees that thing, especially anywhere near a drop area, like at one of the wonderful, wonderful hotspots in our system, whether you're trying to invade an outpost in the future or right now in the current things in Jumptown 2.0, the steel is going to be blasted out of the sky very quickly. Also, interesting thing about the black. Will this thing fit Furies? I've heard a couple different comments in the last YouTube video about that, and I think it's possible. that the Furies would be able to fit. I don't think through their side door, but I think through this back door. If you had 2 Furies, you could probably communicate with each other and have one that's kind of like staged and ready to go out, where basically it has that ability to go side to side without bumping into the other one. And then maybe the other one is stacked up behind it if it can fit this way, like right up against the gate. So they're basically back and forth like a cattle chute, or at least staggered in like let's say into a grid pattern. So where I'm standing would be the one, and then the other one maybe over there a little bit. And the one towards the back would not be manipulated and moved until the first one starts getting out the door. Because obviously the compactness nature of this is only so compact. It'd probably be a little closer, more realistic. It'd probably be like there. And then you'd have to talk with the other one and go, don't move. I'm going to move mine up and then shoot out the door. In that limited, potentially limited maneuverability of the compact nature of it. Once again, I talked about tractor beams in the past video, and I wanted to be clear about why I said that. There's 2 concerns. One, if somebody is inexperienced or just accidentally hits the deploy key and those wings get opened up in ships that are this small and this tight, where it fits fine when it's compacted, but when it is open, it could potentially damage the host ship and also damage the other Furies around it, especially if they're stacked up closely. And the other issue being if the ship does damage the host ship, now you don't have a ride home. It's bad enough if you bang into another Fury, but if you literally knock out the host ship where it is functionally inoperable in the middle of nowhere, that's a major problem. And now your entire mini fleet you have is basically dead in the water. So just some thoughts. Thought some interesting discussion about these other variants. There's a little bit of space in the back of the red and the blue. The blue has those tanks, those body tanks. The red has this bay here. I would love to see if one Fury could fit in here with the door closed. That's the caveat. If you look at the way the door closes, it doesn't take up like a huge amount of space. Towards the top, it tends to give it, it's a little more forgiving. I think we have to measure this. But it's potentially, it's possible. And with these type of ships where you have some utility, like in the red, you have those 2 tier 3 beds, and in the blue you have those bounty storage tanks. It would be very that are vertical. It would be very interesting to see if you could fit at least one Fury in these things. It would certainly be a force multiplier and really be fascinating. Although it would increase the crew complement from 2 to 3, because really you want one person, especially for the blue. You're gonna want somebody on the turret, manning the turret. Instead of like your co-pilot would jump off their co-pilot seat and go to the turret, and then the third person would be handling the Fury. That would be how I would infer it, because that turret up there actually does reasonable amounts of damage. So maybe it would be an argument of if a ship is hyper maneuverable and you can't get that turret on the fight, then the Fury would suddenly be more useful. I just don't know. I just don't know, to be honest, what would be the better solution. But it seems like the crew complement would be increased from 2 to 3 on some of these smaller ships. And if it does even fit into some of the Lancers, if it does fit into the Cutties, especially the blue and the red, which are more questionable, it does bring up the question of, even if you can, should you? And then we're going... Man, this announcer... This isn't the first year that Drake is taking pop shots at the UEE and how they can't defend you, and the UEE Navy's not your best friends, and this and that. Last year they had a big plaque on the wall at the front of Defensecon that said, "When the fleet leaves town," or I'm paraphrasing here, "when the fleet leaves, who's got your back?" And it was a shot at like obviously the event was over, and they're insinuating that now the only person who has your back is you. So buy our weaponized ships and get in the game, take part in your own defense, that kind of argument, which is very Drake, that individualistic, who needs safe tools, and who needs escape pods, and who needs all this hand holding. You can do it yourself and on a budget. For better or worse, that's their game. Now, I've heard a few people talk about the Cat. The Cat is a modular ship, so in theory, the Cat will be able to replace these pieces of equipment on the front and on the side and along the whole frontage. These are the cargo module. In the future, they will be able to have other types of modules. In the front, they're supposed to be like a Cat, like a Dragonfly launching bay type thing as like a module example. They're trying to explore all sorts of things. And as a reminder, the Cat is already 2 ships. Technically, the command pod is its own ship that can detach and do its own thing. It kind of acts as a lifeboat for the Cat, and it also acts as an explorer module and other things. In the case of the situation of a swarm ship, that a lot of people have said, we want Cats. We want the Cats. We want each one of these bays to be filled to the brim with Furies, and I'm totally with that. I get it. I think this side being with a Fury and the other side having some cargo space that's left behind for like size 2 missiles and size 1 missiles and size 2 ammo could totally support Furies. I could see them constantly coming back, rearming, even hand refueling when that's finally in game, and really going to town. I could definitely see like a whole contingent of like 4 Furies rocking this thing, and then in the front being able to maybe mount a couple more. I've heard estimates of up to 8. I don't know if that's possible, but I could definitely see 4 up front, and like 1 on each of these cargo bays. So 1, 2, 3, and then here comes 4, if I remember right. Yep, 4. So I don't know if you're going to have like some massive swarm. That's the 8 example. That's why I purposely was trying to show that as like why that makes sense, is like that's the maximum really that's remember, these are the doors when they're closed. These are how the doors look when they're open. These doors are supposed to be able to lower to the ground. They can't yet, but they're perfectly fine for entering and exiting once they're compacted, these ships. I stand by what I said, especially up front, about the Fury. When it's compacted, it's going to be much more manageable when you're trying to stack a few of these in the same place. I question the Furies being able to operate multiple while they're expanding and flying on their own. The risk of deploying one when they're stacked up, 4 of them packed in this small space, and then trying to get out the door and bumping into each other may cause significant damage to the host ship and also to each other. Well, to each other, but probably at least some damage to the host. Is plausible. So obviously there's going to have to be some discipline and coordination when you have multiple Furies in any ship stacked up in the same place. So I'm hesitant, but I am optimistic that it will be worked out, and I know a lot of orgs are going to make good use of these, and a Cat is a wonderful host ship for the Furies, at least based on everything we're seeing. Obviously, it's a huge air caveat there that we need to test these ships. We need to see what they can fit in. We need to see how they handle when they're right next to each other. And if they do bump into each other, it may not be a big deal. It might not be. But I do, in the back of my mind, think about how they only have, what, 6,900 hit points with a 53% damage reduction. So effectively, just under around 10,000 hit points, effective hit points on each one of those Furies. They don't have that many hit points, and that's overall hit points. The wings are like 1,100. So I stand back for a moment. I think about this ship, and I think about having that many Furies rocking on the front is probably the most problematic place. On the side, on the other hand, a single Fury in each one of these bays, whew, that would be fantastic, because you could, like, the equivalent of like Battlestar Galactica 4 edition, you know, rock in and just bang against here within reason, and just kind of combat land, get rearmed, combat land, get rearmed, combat land, get rearmed, combat land, get rearmed, and then constantly back and forth, back and forth. Pilots jumping out of their Furies, rearming, or ideally having 1 to 2 players of the org mounting the equipment with tractor beams. bam, 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 missiles, 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 ammo, and whatever they need, and just throwing it in to the ship as much as humanly possible. I think that like a 6-man team on the side of this ship, a 6-crew team on the side of this ship could do some incredible things. The front, on the other hand, I see it more of as storage. As these are destroyed and lost, then these are the resupplied area. These are the second wave, if you will. So this would be like the rule of halves in naval. You know, while the 4 are out, the other 4 are being prepped and ready to go if needed. They're like in like a warm site. They're right there, but ideally you won't be constantly managing them in and out, in and out, in and out, trying to rearm those front in that tight area. So let's see what's on the holograms. The Kraken again. I don't know what I expected. So, let's see. This is the vanilla Kraken, it seems like. I don't see much new on the hologram, but then again, a lot of what's going on with the Kraken is up top. Well, not that up top. That was from when I was looking at the Cutty Blue. Turret. So, what I see is the same deal as before. I can't use the F key in cinematography. I gotta always remember that. At the front of the bridge, so if you're looking at that large superstructure that's above the flight deck, on the front left, there is an elevator right there. And it's still clearly visible there. That's one of the largest elevators that services the flight deck for those 2 larger of the 6 pads that are on the top flight deck. I still see it's there, and I've always kept a close eye on the Kraken models for those type of indications of where those doors are going to be, how big they are, because that gives me some perspective on how large the resupply capabilities are, aside from what's automated on the pads and what's officially supported with the cargo tram and things like that. The turrets clearly do not have weapons mounted on this holo for some reason. This is actually the Drake air traffic controller is the single size 7 turret here. It's a dual size 7 and basically has complete control over those pads. Anybody who doesn't have permission to land, obviously that thing's going to fire upon you. The 2 hangars. So this is another Fury related topic. I have been one of the people proposing that these hangars will be wonderful suited nature for Furies. The pictures I've been seeing are up top, up top. The focus is always up top. And my reaction to that is not where the Furies, in my eyes, my opinion, this is all it is opinion, it's a waste of time to put them up there. They have so few hit points, even with the little bit of SDF shielding that kind of wanders up a little bit up the side of the Fury, they could easily be picked off while they're still being spun up and flown out to fight if the ship gets jumped. But if they're inside this hangar, on the other hand, the ship can spin to win. Yes, even cap ships can turn and basically protect the hangar for a moment during the fight and then open the hangar door once everyone's ready to go and kick out 6, 7, maybe even 8 Furies out the side of a single hangar module. You could even outfit 2. Maybe even have up to 16 Furies in a swarm as a defensive measure or as a surprise attack. These hangars are meant to support Buccaneer-sized ships or larger. If you look at the pictures from CIG about the Kraken, they have a Buccaneer being worked on with big gantry above it, carrying parts over to the Buccaneer. And then the 4 hangar pads above it are the small hangar. They're the small spawn bays. Basically, they're supposed to have Buccaneers on them. Picture a Buccaneer. If a Buccaneer fits, you're good to go. And obviously, they should fit larger fighters as well, before I start drawing ire in the comment section. But basically, the image was 4 Buccaneers, 2 Cutlasses in the other side on the bigger pads. And yes, there is some debate on how big those pads can truly get, or can the pads be shared on a single large ship? Can 2 large ships park on there? After all, it fits, it sits. You know, what's an officially supported on the pad versus what the pad will just let you use without rearming as resupplying? A lot of topic there. But These side hangars, I think, are where really the Furies are going to shine. I foresee a single hangar being left open to rearm, resupply, and outfit and properly repair maybe fighters that desperately need a little more TLC that are on those upper pads. But on, say, the other hangar, it being filled to the brim with Furies. Fury MXs preferably, if you want some high alpha, high punch for that protect you from an ambush situation. And just piles of size 2 and size 1 missiles being flung at the enemy. I could see that being a very powerful asset. And do you really need 2 hangars just working on TLC and the deeper rearming and resupplying and repair on fighters? I don't think so. I think a single one of these hangars being outfitted with Furies is a very practical measure. And once again, you do not have to buy a pile of Furies during this sale or any future sale. You can buy these in-game. They're going to be cheap as heck. They're going to be one of the cheapest ships because they don't have a quantum drive. They have extremely cheap modules. They are not meant to be big. They are very, very, very affordable. I'll just keep that in the back of your mind. If you're buying one now, it's for an LTI token or to have fun with it, or as a second ship to support, or as a extra little bit of firepower for your main ship if you have a multi-crew vessel, if you're blessed enough to have one. It's not meant to be something you buy a whole stack of. I mean, you do whatever you want, but that's just my perspective. Now, on the back of the ship, there's also, on the vanilla version, which is what we're looking at, there is a Dragonfly Bay. So on the back here, there is a large gate, and I can't just hold F and point at it, frustratingly. But there, you just have to trust me. There is a Dragonfly Bay on the vanilla Kraken that is designed to outfit multiple Dragonflies, and it has a automated mechanism that can move the Dragonflies to storage and pull them back out, bring them to the top of the ship, and basically spit them out, so put them on an angle so they can just fly away. It's going to work extremely well in space. In Atmo, it's going to be much more interesting to use that, but in concept, it's a pretty useful tool. Some people have suggested putting Furies inside that Dragonfly Bay. I would mention that it's going to be difficult to maneuver a compacted Fury if my prediction is correct that the 2 thrusters on the top are impacted by being in that compact mode. I could be wrong. I could be. We have to test it on May 19, on the first day of launch week, when these things are finally available. But if I'm right, it's going to be a problem working through that area with extremely limited maneuverability in compact mode without deploying your wings so you don't bang into everything or damage it or not be able to fit. Additionally, the bays that those Dragonflies are squeezing into may not be big enough to fit Furies into. And if you look at the concept images for the Dragonflies and also for the Kraken Privateer private shop area, both of those give a great image of how limited that space is. That area is more designed for, like, if you look at the person scale. That's my advice to everybody is, remember, they are concepts, they can change them, but just picture like a pair of Dragonflies stacked in there. That's really all the way you're working with, height-wise. And then width-wise, it's like it's a single shop hab style thing with a table in front of it. Is basically the width of the space. There was talk of putting 4 shops in there, but they decided against that for balance reasons, if I remember correctly, from the Kraken Privateer introduction video that was at a previous CitizenCon. Okay. So that's kind of covering one of the other Fury, one of the other heroes of the Fury carrier base thing. As a reminder, by the time the Kraken is in, you will absolutely be able to buy these Furies in-game. You can blame me if they aren't, but do not feel compelled to buy a stack of Furies for your Kraken. Do not feel compelled to buy a stack of Furies for your for your cat. And I would say, by the way, if you have workmates or friends that are in the same time zone, encourage them maybe. Hey, if you got a referral Dragonfly, maybe pick up a, you know, let's say it's only a 10 or 15 USD CCU to the Fury. Encourage them to really look at those referrals in a new light and be like, hey, maybe you could plink down a couple dollars if you got it to play with. And then if everybody just brings one Fury, suddenly you could stack up an entire cat. If you really, really, really have to buy them. just remember, you know, you don't all have to own a whole stack of them. You can be each other's connection for that stack. It's hard enough to outfit a crew a single ship, let alone a pseudo carrier, let alone multiple. Just remember that. So the cutter looks about the same. I think it has a very good use of space. Unfortunately, the cutter expedition that we've heard about in the past, that was not rumor, I mean, it was literally like a suggestion, is not here yet. If it ever is realized. That was supposed to be a cutter that has more food capabilities, that has some other interesting technologies on board that are more meant to make it a better endurance ship. The cutter's already a great ship. I actually really like these little windows. I'm a huge fan of those, and I hope to see more ships have like those practical considerations, even on a small ship like this. And I love the Cutty aesthetic of this back rear door. That has a nice amount of space for cargo and for small vehicles. But being able to peek out the window before you open your door and see like, hey, is there something going on out there? What's up? You know, that makes it really practical. And it makes this place feel a little less small. And that's pretty cool. It's a nice touch. Onto one of the neglected ships, the Drake Herald. The Drake Herald is a frustrating ship. Basically, until data running is really in, what is this ship going to do? I don't think there's going to be a pass on this ship until data running and all these server modules are suddenly storing data and there's a profit, there's a contract system. It's really meant to be a single person ship. It's meant for somebody that's the pilot to be able to come back here and, you know, do their transactions and do their data capabilities, and then also have a bed. It's also very fast. I don't know how this thing's going to perform in master modes. It's going to be interesting because, like, I mean, a significant part of the ship is just the engine, the main thrusters, and it's fast. That's all it's got going for it right now. It's an interesting ship, and it's fast, and it's got a bed. So, yeah. The poor Herald. Here's the Buccaneer that I mentioned earlier. This is what I was talking about. The hangar in the Kraken is designed to accommodate one of these. And there are 2 hangars on the Kraken. So it is a viable discussion point. It is obviously significantly larger than a Fury. And it's understandable why you would say that multiple Furies could fit inside the same place that is designed to work on and repair a ship of this scale and size. So, yeah. That's all I got on the Buccaneer. The Buccaneer is what it is. I wish there was an ability to really close these wings properly, so like the entire thing just collapsed on the fuselage. It would be really interesting. I guess that would make the ship more expensive or more complex. I don't know, but yeah, Drake Vulture and of course the Corsair. I'm gonna commit heresy here and skip with the Vulture right now. Apologies to any Vulture fans. I think the ship's wonderful. I think it's great that we have a smaller ship. People that are into salvage, it's not cool to just be like, oh, just get yourself a reclaimer, because buying one in game is basically near impossible, you know, without really having a ship to really clear some cash. And then also buying it out of game obviously is significantly expensive. So you store a significant amount of your budget, if your budget can even allow for it, on a single ship. Just for one gameplay loop, you better really like it. And how do you test it? Well, you can test it now with hand tools, and you can test it with the Reclaimer ship, and hopefully there'll be a ground vehicle eventually. But, so we're a Fury variant. So that was actually a discussion point multiple of us have had, is basically, should there be Furies for cargo tractor beam work, and then also Furies for salvage and for mining. It would be very, very cool to see maybe at least just a utility-based Fury they could swap between different modules, or a set of Furies that are each different skill if you can't have utility modular wing variant. Yeah, so, okay. Let's get into this discussion here. So, Corsair-wise, the Corsair, I think, could easily fit at least 2 Furies. But that's kind of betraying the truth here. I think you could probably fit 4. And remember, any test you do is going to matter, basically... Heck. It's going to matter when the door's closed. So that's how much space we have to work with. So obviously we could have at least a pair of Furies overhanging a little bit. This door will bump into them a bit, and we should still be okay. I have moderate confidence in that because of how shallow this angle of attack is on this door. So, I don't know. Like, I think a pair here. I don't think 3 across. Although I could be wrong. I absolutely could be wrong. Once again, we have to test them. And then at least 2 that are behind those 2. Yeah, I can definitely see it. Now, will there be room for 6? I just don't know it right now. I'm sure some people are already modeling that, but please, if you're doing your models, remember to account for the door. Account for the door, account for the door. It's not good enough to just show an open door on a Hercules or something like that, which has happened in the past, and show like just a ridiculous amount of equipment stacked into a Herc, and then not consider that that door requires a clearance area, and it only has so much space over its lip in order to have space. So I think that's yeah. That's where we're at. So this is Drake Defensecon 2953. As a reminder, there may be surprises. It is not out of the realm possibility for CIG to have a placeholder and then pull at the last minute. Defensecon is much later in the week. It is right before the finale days, and it is its own unique creature. It is once again at the Riker Spaceport. So if you skipped the beginning of this video and you didn't see where I was at, I'm at the Riker Spaceport. There's an elevator just beyond the ASOP terminals and elevators to the hangars. If you keep walking forward, if you're coming from Area 18 Habs, or if you're coming off the hangars, you would hang a hard right instead of a left. That's the deal. Right now, I'm just wandering around trying to see if there's anything else. This announcer's really make me laugh. He's got like this whole sales pitch he keeps going on and over and over. What's weird to me is they only have a single Kraken hologram in that display hall they have set up. That's once again a question of, is there placeholders? So this is now, I guess, overtime technically. I'm kind of just wandering into the ether. I had a whole list of points on my whiteboard I was going through just to really bring up and really hammer home issues that people had, comments that people had, concerns about their ships. Will they be able to fit these newer ships? Will they be able to handle these new ships? What is the strategies of those, you know, hitting all those things? It's particularly Drake related because Drake's open right now on the 3.19 PTU as of May 15. The main hall is not open right now for testing, so I can't get back in there and see what's going on. One of the examples of that I was trying to get to was the Fury's landing gears or hover pads, some other technologies. I really want to get under the hood, so to speak, and see underneath those ships and really see if I can spot any hints of if the landing gear is missing or if there's hover technology, grav-lev type technologies, like on the Nomad, for example. But yeah, I don't see anything. I don't see any more secrets. I think we've uncovered everything, at least in this initial test of the Drake Defensecon. And just for the record, update on my FPS. I'm sitting in the 35s like normal, up to 40s though. And I'm pleasantly surprised. I mean, like when I get close to the door, for example, 50s, when I start looking at ships with a lot of reflections, I am seeing an entire room full of ships. It goes down and it holds around the 35s and to 31s, 32, that kind of realm. So this is, I guess, worst case scenario for my build. Once again, I am 64 gigs of RAM at 6,000 speed, 7800 X3D. But a 2080 overclocked is apparently my bottleneck. And one other thing, I'm running at 1440p, and here is my exact graphical settings. I don't want anybody to say I'm misleading them. Quality is very high, scattered high, object distance is high, terrain tessellation is high, volumetric clouds are high even. And that used to be a big thing in Oris, and I used to have to keep them on low. On my old build, 86 FOV, once again at 1440p. I am now recording at a 70, and the past few videos actually, 70 megabit per second bit rate, directly in NVENC. So it's basically as good as it gets, and then I render it out at 1080p, 60 FPS. So I try not to limit the FPS as much as possible. Whatever it feeds, it feeds. In the future, I'm considering 4K. We'll see. I don't even have 4K monitors right now, though. I have a pair of 1440p 27 inches. Alright, that's all I got. Thank you for hanging out with me, and if I run into you, please, I wish you a wonderful launch week. I hope to get on the tours. I hope to check out some things. I hope to blow some things up and have a good time. And once again, I wish you all a wonderful launch week. Fly safe.